My name is Samuel. I'm 82 years old, and I spent 67 years of my life kneeling inside a church that was not built by Jesus. It was built by a Roman emperor. And nobody, not one priest, not one nun, not one bishop in all those decades, ever told me the truth about who really founded the religion I had given my entire life to. When I finally found out, 3 years ago, I sat at my kitchen table and I cried like a small boy. Because I realized that everything I had been taught, everything I had taught my own children, everything I had whispered in the ear of my dying wife, was not what the apostles believed. It was something else, something that was assembled piece by men with crowns and swords long after the last apostle had been killed. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, because if you are Catholic, what I am going to share tonight is going to shake the ground under your feet. And if you are not Catholic, you still need to hear this, because the same trick that was played on us is being played on the whole world right now. You see, when I was a young man, my father, God rest his soul, taught me that the Catholic Church was the original church, the one Jesus himself founded on the rock of St. Peter. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Every priest in my town said the same thing. Every catechism book said the same thing. I had no reason to question it. But here's what I didn't understand then. The first Christians, the real ones, the ones who walked with Jesus and watched him die and saw him rise, they did not call themselves Catholics. They did not have a pope. They did not have statues. They did not have a priest in fancy robes standing between them and God. They did not baptize babies. They did not pray to Mary. They did not confess their sins into the ear of another man. None of that existed. I want you to sit with that for a minute. None of it. Honestly, when I first read that in an old book a friend lent me, I thought it was a lie. I thought it was Protestant propaganda. I closed the book. I refused to read any more. For 2 months, I would not touch it. It sat on my nightstand like a viper. But the question kept eating me. If the first Christians did not do any of those things, then when did all those things start? And who started them? Let me explain. You see, the word Catholic is a Greek word, katholikos. It means universal, that's all. It did not mean a specific church with a specific pope in a specific city in Italy. It meant the whole community of believers scattered across the world, united by their faith in Jesus. That word was first used by a man named Ignatius of Antioch around the year 110 after Christ. He used it to describe how all Christians everywhere were one big family. That's it. It was not the name of an institution. It was a description of unity. For the first 300 years after Jesus died, Christians were hunted. They were burned. They were fed to lions. They were nailed to crosses upside down. Nero blamed them for burning Rome and tortured them in his gardens, covering them in animal skins so his dogs would tear them apart. He set some of them on fire to light his parties. Those Christians met in homes. They broke bread together. They read the letters of Paul and Peter out loud by candlelight. They had no cathedrals. They had no Vatican. They had no gold-plated chalices. They had no pope. They were just people, scared, hungry, faithful, hiding. And here's what surprised me most. Those first Christians were actually divided into different groups even back then. There were Jewish Christians in Jerusalem, led by Peter and James, who still followed the laws of Moses. And there were Gentile Christians, mostly led by Paul, who believed salvation came by grace and faith, not by following the old laws. Those two groups didn't always agree. They argued. They wrote letters back and forth. But neither of them was building what we now call the Catholic Church. Then came the year 313 after Christ, and everything changed. A Roman emperor named Constantine, a man who had killed his own wife and his own son, a man who worshipped the sun god Sol Invictus most of his life, decided to make Christianity legal. Then later, the official religion of the entire Roman Empire. Now you might think, well, that's a good thing, right? The persecution stopped. Christians were finally safe. I felt empty when I learned what really happened next, because what Constantine did was not save Christianity. He swallowed it. He took a movement of poor, persecuted believers and turned it into an arm of his government. He paid the bishops a salary out of his own treasury. He gave them lands. He gave them palaces. He gave them political power. And in return, the bishops gave him control over what the church would teach. You see, before Constantine, the church was a movement against power. After Constantine, the church became the power. That is when the real corruption started. Not slowly, quickly. Constantine had been a sun worshipper, so when his pagan subjects refused to give up their festival of the unconquered sun on December 25th, Constantine and the bishops did something clever. They renamed it. They said, "This is now the birthday of Jesus, the Son of Righteousness." Christmas, as we know it, was born that day, in the year of a Roman compromise, not in a stable in Bethlehem. The real birth of Jesus was almost certainly in the autumn, not in winter, not on December 25th. The shepherds were still in the fields with their flocks, which they would never have been in the cold of a Bethlehem winter. But the deal had been made. Pagan customs were dressed up in Christian clothing, and nobody questioned it. The same thing happened with infant baptism. The first Christians baptized adults who chose to follow Jesus. Babies cannot choose. But after Constantine, when the whole empire was forced to be Christian, they needed a way to mark every newborn citizen as part of the state religion. So infant baptism became standard, not because Jesus commanded it, because the empire required it. The same thing happened with the worship of saints, with statues, with images, with relics, with indulgences, with priestly vestments, all of it, borrowed, renamed, Christianized on paper, but pagan in its bones. Now I have to pause right here, because I know what I'm telling you tonight is heavy, and I know you have questions, big ones. Listen to me. I am 82 years old. The doctor told me last month that my heart is not what it used to be. I do not have unlimited time to keep recording videos and answering every single question that this topic raises. That is exactly why I spent the last 3 years gathering every single piece of historical evidence, every single hidden document, every single silenced council and burned letter, every single proof of what the church became and what the original faith actually looked like. And I put it all into one definitive guide. I called it The Forbidden Archives, the definitive guide to the end times mysteries hidden by the church. The link is in the first pinned comment of this video. You need to arm yourself with this knowledge before it's too late. Because what I am sharing tonight is just a tiny corner of what is in those pages. The full story, the survival protocols, the prophecies the Vatican has locked away in their secret archives for centuries, all of that is in the book. Go to the first pinned comment right now and secure your copy. But listen to the rest of this story first, because what comes next is the part that finally broke me. You see, after Constantine, things only got worse. In the year 590, a Roman bishop named Gregory the Great became what most historians consider the first real pope. Before him, the Bishop of Rome was just one bishop among many. There were patriarchs in Alexandria, in Antioch, in Ephesus, in Constantinople. None of them bowed to Rome. They were equals, brothers. But Gregory changed that. He centralized the power. He made Latin the only language of the Mass, even though most people in the empire did not speak Latin. He invented purgatory as official doctrine, even though nowhere in the Bible does the word purgatory appear. He pushed the veneration of saints. He pushed the use of images. He created canon law, a system of legal rules that bound the church and the state together into one giant machine. After Gregory, you could not separate the church from the empire. They were the same thing. And the man at the top, the Pope, was not just a spiritual leader. He was a king, with armies, with taxes, with prisons, with the power to crown emperors and excommunicate kings. Does that sound like Jesus? Jesus who said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Jesus who washed the feet of his disciples. Jesus who was born in a feed trough and died naked on a Roman cross. I felt sick when I understood this, truly sick, because the church I had served for almost 7 decades had taken the name of the poorest man who ever lived and turned it into the wealthiest institution on earth. And here's what I didn't understand then. There is no evidence in the Bible, none, that Peter was ever made the supreme head of the church. Peter is mentioned. Peter is loved. Peter is an apostle. But Peter is not given a crown. Peter is not given a throne. Peter is not told to start a line of successors. Paul actually rebukes Peter to his face in the book of Galatians. You don't rebuke a pope to his face. You don't rebuke the supposed vicar of Christ on earth. unless he isn't one. The whole idea of an unbroken line of popes from Peter is a tradition built backwards, hundreds of years later, to justify a power that had already been taken. Then there's Mary. The first Christians did not pray to Mary. They honored her, yes, she was the mother of our Lord. She was blessed among women. But they did not ask her to intercede. They did not believe she was born without sin. They did not believe she was taken up into heaven, body and soul. You know when those doctrines became official? The Immaculate Conception was declared in 1854, just over 170 years ago. The Assumption of Mary was declared in 1950, after my own birth. In my own lifetime, the Church added a brand new doctrine about Mary that the first Christians had never heard of. Think about that. The doctrines were not handed down from the apostles. They were invented, slowly, over centuries, by men who needed to keep the people loyal to Rome and not to the simple gospel. And the Bible warned about this. Paul himself in Galatians chapter 1 said, "Even if an angel from heaven preaches to you a different gospel than the one we preached, let him be cursed." Jesus himself in Mark chapter 7 told the religious leaders of his day, "You have invalidated the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition." Those words were not written to the pagans. They were written to the religious, to the people who thought they were doing everything right, to the people who, like me, had been faithful their whole lives to a system that had drifted from the truth without them ever noticing. I felt foolish. I felt betrayed. I felt scared, honestly, because I started to wonder, what else have I been told that isn't true? What else has been hidden? What else has been buried in the archives of an institution that has had 2,000 years to bury whatever it wanted? That's when I knew I could not stay silent, not even at 82. Now listen to me. Listen very carefully, because this is the part that matters more than anything else I am going to say tonight. I do not know how much longer they will let me speak about this. Already 2 of my videos have been quietly taken down. Already comments are being deleted. Already my channel has been flagged. I am old and my time is short. If you do not want your children and your grandchildren to die inside the same deception that I lived in for 67 years, you must get the Forbidden Archives, the definitive guide to the end times mysteries hidden by the Church, into your hands tonight. Not next week, not when you have time, tonight. The link is in the first pinned comment of this video. Click it now, order your copy, read it tonight, by lamplight if you have to, the way the first Christians read Paul's letters in their hidden homes while the empire hunted them. Underline it, mark it up, hand it to your son, hand it to your sister, hand it to the one person in your family who you know in your spirit is searching for the truth and cannot find it inside the 4 walls of an institution that has been compromised for 1700 years. Do not wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow this video might be gone. Tomorrow my channel might be gone. Tomorrow you might be gone. None of us, not me at 82, not you watching this right now, are promised the morning. The pinned comment is waiting. The truth is waiting. Your soul and the souls of the people you love are waiting. And before you leave me tonight, if any single thing I said struck you, if your hands trembled even once while I was talking, please hit that like button so this video reaches another person who needs to hear it. Leave me a comment with the city you are listening from and the age you are, so I know you are out there, so I know I am not just an old man talking to an empty room. And subscribe to this channel, because as long as the Lord gives me breath, I will keep telling you what the priests will not. Go now, the first pinned comment, right now, before you close this app. May the real Jesus, the simple one, the poor one, the one from the manger, be with you tonight.